So I want to welcome folks back to our 45th weekly Zoom interview. And my guest today is Sofia Durdag. And I have invited her because she is the winner in our Margaret Chase Smith essay contest. It's an annual contest that we run, and this year is the 25th anniversary of it. Welcome, Sofia.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm really good. How are you?
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm a senior at Scarborough High School. I'll be graduating in a little less than a month. I play volleyball. I really like to read. And then in the fall, I will be attending Carleton College in Minnesota, and I'm going to study political science and international relations.
Well, political science very much fits into the theme of the contest this year. We always try to pick a theme that relates to something that's going on in the news, and it always sort of has a political bent in it from the standpoint that Margaret Chase Smith was involved in politics. And because of the election this year, we decided to focus on the Electoral College. As hopefully most people know, when we vote, we are actually voting for electors because it's ultimately electors who elect the President of the United States, not the popular vote. And so we asked high school seniors what they thought about that. And I was actually quite impressed with the quality of essays that we got. People did a lot of research about it. Was it something you had been following? Had you been following the presidential election?
Yeah, I follow the news pretty obsessively. I read a lot, but so the Electoral College is something I've always been like very passionate about, like abolishing, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I already kind of had like the framework for the Electoral College, and then I just really kind of dug into the history and read a lot of articles about it for my research. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that really came through in your essay, again, I was impressed by how much research almost everyone had done. They really knew the history of Electoral College and the arguments for and against it. But your passion about the topic really came through in your writing. One of the things that made it stand out.
Thank you.
So how long have you known about the Electoral College?
How long? I started reading the newspaper when I was like in 3rd or 4th grade.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, kind of probably since middle school. I started following politics like really intensely in middle school, and I feel like a lot of my political opinions were formed like by like the 2016 election,
Mm-hmm.
where the Electoral College kind of wasn't so great.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that passion probably came from there.
Okay. So you've been interested in politics for a long time, and I'm always interested in how we come up with our interests. Do you have a sense of why it is that you got interested at such a young age in politics?
I always saw my parents reading the newspaper in the and like at the breakfast table, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel like being a little kid, I wanted to be like them and
Yeah.
emulate them. So I started reading a lot, and I feel like the more you read, the more you want to know about like the outside world, and politics was just kind of the natural extension of that. There was so much to learn, and I just wanted to know it all.
Have you had some interesting family dinner conversations?
Yes. Yeah, my entire like most of my family I would say is like reads a lot of like current news and stuff.
Well, one of the interesting questions today is sources. What do you like to use as your sources for knowing what's going on in the political world?
I have the New York Times and the Atlantic app on my phone. So
Mm-hmm.
and I also read like the Portland Press Herald every single day.
Mm-hmm.
So like weirdly enough, I feel like I'm probably kind of an outlier in my generation who they probably get most of their news from social media, but I get it from like print sources,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't know how many people of my generation do it that way, but that's the way I do it.
So can you give people a rough idea of what your argument was about the Electoral College? You said that you think is something that should be abolished, but why? I mean, it's been around for over 200 years. It is actually in the Constitution that this is the way we elect our president.
Yeah, one of my main arguments was that the Electoral College has basically been terrible from the very beginning. It has racist origins because the founding fathers kind of used it to give slaveholding states more power because of the 3/5 rule. So their delegation size increased by like 25%, which really impacted the line of presidents that came after. After like 4 presidents in, almost like all of the next like 10 or 15 presidents were slave owners. It's elitist, which makes sense. Like with the rest of the Constitution is a pretty elitist document, especially without the Bill of Rights, without like the amendments or anything like that. And then because of political parties, it absolutely like imploded upon arrival, because the founding fathers like, okay, let's have the electors be like these really wise, kind of the final decision makers of the presidential election. They're beholden to just their own will, their own beliefs. They're going to be smarter than the common man or whatever. But then political parties kind of came into existence over the fight over ratification of the Constitution, and then electors became beholden to party, not personal will. So that kind of ruined it before it could even begin, really. Mm-hmm. But then in our modern day, it has even more problems than before because of rural bias. The Electoral College gives way more weight to voters living in rural, normally red states than it does to, say, Californians or something like that. Which is a really big problem because the amount of people living in those really larger states and cities is just going to keep on increasing. And the rural areas are probably going to keep on decreasing, which means the divide between the amount of electoral votes that each state gets is just going to get worse and worse and worse. And then there's the problem of swing states. There's a lot of problems where basically like maybe 8 states are kind of picked every single election cycle to be the ones lavished with money and visits and political promises from candidates, tourism from kind of the political circles. And then all the other American voters are ignored because their votes are kind of already decided. But like, who knows? Which is kind of a really weird and awkward political system for such a small fraction of voters to be so important, especially for people living, say you're a Texan, but you're a really strong Democrat. It can be hard living in that state to feel like your vote matters. Or maybe you're a Republican in California. Why would you even vote if you're going to know the outcome? And I don't think that's a sustainable political system in any sense of the word. If you have voters not even voting because they know it's not going to make a difference, when voting is literally about making a difference.
Well, I haven't even really thought about that angle. Yeah, if you live in a certain state that's either solid red or solid blue, if you're the other color, your vote really, it doesn't even matter, because it's winner take all with the Electoral College system. As long as you have one more vote, all those electoral votes go to that candidate. Yeah. So it could, in a way, in certain states, suppress the vote. Yeah.
America does have lower voter turnout in comparison. 2020 is kind of an exception, but in the past, it has had lower voter turnout in comparison with other like similar democracies like Germany or Britain or something like that. That's been a consistent sort of thing.
So there was another reason that we decided to choose that topic, and it's because Margaret Chase Smith had very strong views about Electoral College, and she was opposed to it. And this goes all the way back to the mid-1960s, where there were some moves to try to get rid of it back then. But it didn't really go anywhere at that time. So let me ask you this. It's come back into play, as you say, in recent elections that have actually wound up being determined by the electoral vote rather than the popular vote. In recent elections, the candidates who have gotten the most popular vote have not won the electoral votes, so therefore did not become president.
Yeah.
Do you think in your lifetime that the Electoral College will be abolished?
I certainly hope so. The political climate right now, like an amendment hasn't been passed in decades and decades and decades. Like the current political atmosphere is so gridlocked and so divided that it's really hard to get the requisite amount of votes and states needed to pass an amendment like that. But I don't know, politics are fluid. I don't see it happening while I'm still like a teenager or a young adult. Um, but I think it's definitely possible, especially since I feel like the two main political parties right now are very much in a state of flux, especially the Republican Party. I feel like there might be like a third political party forming right now, just like within the divide in the Republican Party. So I feel like just given the kind of volatile things we've seen happening in politics in like, the past few years, I think it is definitely possible that the conditions could shift enough where an amendment is possible, where it could be abolished, but I feel like it'll probably take a few decades.
It's a very high bar to clear in that because it's in the Constitution, it will require a constitutional amendment, and you need super majorities to make those changes. So, we have a hard time even getting to 50-50 nowadays. To get to 2/3 or 3/4 will be even harder. So the last thing I'll say about the essay contest is we often have people ask us, well, how can we read these essays? And one of the things that we do is that with the assent of the authors, we forward them on to the Maine Policy Review, which is a publication of the Margaret Chase Smith Policy Center at the University of Maine. And they usually publish at least the top essay, and if they have space, they'll publish the top 3. So we are very hopeful in the next issue or 2 that Sofia's essay will be available for reading online, and we'll make that known when that happens. So thank you for allowing us to forward it on to the Maine.
No problem.
So my next question is, what got this series started was the pandemic came along and we were closed down and people couldn't come to the library. We were looking for ways that we could stay in touch with an audience, and we got the idea, well, let's start interviewing people who have these interesting connections to Margaret Chase or the Margaret Chase Library. And so when we first started, we were asking people, well, how are you getting through the pandemic? So how has your life been over the past 14 or 15 months through the pandemic?
Well, I mean, my family's been very lucky. We're like able to do well financially. None of us have gotten sick. It's mostly just, it feels like so long. I can't even remember anything like that wasn't pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of feels like, well, this is what it is. But I missed a lot of like markers and milestones and like my academic like senior year kind of stuff, which was a little tricky and hard. But for the most part, I think I've adjusted to like remote schooling and hybrid and all that good stuff. Yeah, the school year was okay.
So how has Scarborough High School handled education? Did you say you've done it hybrid?
Yeah, so we have 2 days in school and then 2 days remote, and then Wednesdays flip between the cohorts for virtual or in person.
And is that the way it's been done through the whole school year?
Yeah, they recently started adding in-person Wednesdays, but the hybrid has been there the entire year.
Mm-hmm. And so, it's your senior year and there's lots of big milestones. How are they going to handle graduation?
Graduation will kind of go on as normal. I think we're still going to have it like at Cross Insurance Arena or whatever. But there's not going to be like the band. I'm in band. I play the saxophone, so I won't be able to like play at my graduation. It's just going to be like a recording of us playing for some reason. So that's a little sad. But otherwise, it's probably going to be pretty much normal. But yeah.
Are you limited on the number of tickets you can have? It's going to be indoors?
Yes. Yeah. I think you can only have like 4 people, maybe. It might be 3. But yeah, we are limited in the amount of people that can attend.
Do you feel as though your education was compromised over the past year?
I mean, I guess we'll find out when I take my AP exams. But I feel like there are some parts that I feel like it's harder to participate when you're online for some reason, like just like clicking a mute button, like figuring out what you're going to say. That's something that's a little more tricky, I would say. But I feel like the quality of the education that I have was still good. I was still able to learn it was still, I think, a success for me personally.
What are your AP courses?
I'm taking AP Spanish tomorrow, and
Oh,
then AP Language, and then AP Calculus.
okay. And how is that being handled in a pandemic? Do you have to go into school or can you do it from home?
No, we have to go in. But I think my Lang exam is going to be online, so we're going to be like typing all our essays, which is a breach from years past where you handwrite all of them. But I think it'll actually make me quicker, so I don't mind that.
Okay. And how are you feeling about your Spanish exam tomorrow?
Oh, that's really the one I'm most worried about. I have to like speak in Spanish for like 2 minutes, and then I have to do like a conversation, and then there's an essay, and then email and multiple choice. It's a weirdly like there's so many parts to it. So I feel like, I've gotten all the knowledge that I need, but it's a matter of application at this point.
Okay. Well, good luck to you.
Thank you.
All right. So what are your favorite studies in school?
I really love like English and any like social studies thing, which probably makes sense from my essay. But those have always been my favorite classes, like Gov and my English classes have always traditionally been my favorites. Yeah.
So clearly you're a good writer because you won the essay contest. And you said you like to read. What do you like to read? Do you have favorite authors or favorite genres?
Yeah, well, I read a lot of historical fiction, not historical fiction, just historical stuff.
Okay.
And then I read a lot of fantasy, so, and some old stuff. I really like Jane Austen, but yeah,
Okay.
just those kind of things.
Do you write just for fun? Do you write apart from school assignments?
Yeah, a little bit, just for like a creative outlet. Sometimes I do, yes.
And are you saving your writing?
Saving? I mean, it's all on my Google Drive, so we'll have it
Says
forever,
I'm
I
old fashioned. I
suppose.
forget. Yeah, everything is digital nowadays.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be there until eternity.
And beyond. So you mentioned some of your extracurriculars that you are in the band, play the saxophone, and you play volleyball. How was your volleyball season? How was it affected by the pandemic?
So volleyball is normally a fall sport in Maine, but we actually did it in the spring this year, and it was really strange, to be honest. We didn't have like championships or anything like that, so that kind of was unfortunate for my senior year. I didn't get to like participate in playoffs or anything like that, which was a little sad. But I'm still really glad I got to play in my senior year period. That was still good. But yeah, it wasn't exactly what I would have wanted.
Did you have to play with masks on?
Yeah, that was also not great.
I was wondering how that. I mean, you look at some of those sports. You look at the basketball players run up and down the court, and I just can't imagine trying to do that with a mask on.
Yeah, it definitely tires you out more.
And you provided us with a little biography to forward on to the Maine policy review. So I know you're involved with some other things, the environmental club. What do you do with the environmental club?
Yeah, so I'm the recycling coordinator. So basically for the environmental club, we also manage the garden at my high school, but mostly we do like recycling, so like clink bags and then like paper recyclables for the school, because otherwise they would just be thrown out and not recycled. So that's kind of what we do. So every Tuesday, most weeks, we go through the school and we'll like collect and sort all of the bottles and cans and then like paper and cardboard, and then put those on their travels to where they need to go.
And what level of participation do you receive?
What level of participation do I receive?
Are people willingly recycling stuff? Do you have to keep on them to recycle
Yeah,
stuff?
people will come. Yeah, a bunch of people come. I feel like a bunch of people in Scarborough are very like environmentally minded and want to like do something they feel is making a concrete impact. So yeah, in years past we've had really great turnout. In the pandemic, like our numbers probably have like dropped a little just because it's hard for people to like come in if they're not in person that day or something like that. But overall, I feel like the club has been fine during the pandemic. Yeah.
And you have an outlet for the stuff you collect? Because I've heard one of the problems with recycling now is that the market has gone down from the standpoint that we used to be able to send a lot of our recyclables to China, but China has said, nope, they don't want our stuff anymore. So are you able, when you collect, bottles and cans probably aren't a problem, but you do paper and cardboard?
Yeah.
And you have a place that you can take that material?
Yeah, we've never had any problems with like not taking our recycling or something like that. I mean, I don't know what will happen in the future, honestly. I feel like the recycling industry can be a very weird one. But I'm hopeful that we'll still be able to, keep on doing whatever we need to do for success.
And then you told us that you were also the vice president of the Reducing Sexism and Violence group. What does that group do?
It's a really long name. Usually just call it RSVP, but spoken out like.
I was going to say you needed a good acronym. You do have the acronym.
Yeah, we do have the acronym. Normally we do not say the entire thing. RSVP. So our members are often involved in like trainings, I guess, that kind of talk about like gender roles and the gender spectrum and consent, and that's like, so our club kind of handles and talks about and educates on like kind of that realm of things. So this year we did like virtual trainings that talked about those really important sort of things that you would need for success both in high school and in the adult world. So yes, I'm pretty involved with that as well.
You have a civil rights team at the high school?
There is a civil rights team. Yeah, we have a lot of crossover in our members that are part of both RSVP and the civil rights team. But I'm not personally a part of it.
But you are involved in another service club, Key Club?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm on the Key Club board, so just like volunteering stuff and helping out the community.
And has that, I mean, we see a lot of Key Club groups come to the library and tell us about the different projects that they've worked on. But I've been thinking over the past year, how much community service are groups able to do during a pandemic? Has it affected the Key Club, the fact that we've been in a pandemic? Or your projects more oriented on the school rather than out in the community?
Yeah, it's been really hard to get like outside community service because a lot of the programs that we normally do like just don't exist this year. But we have been able to do some stuff for the homeless community, and we've done like book drives and stuff. So less like in-person volunteering and more like fun, kind of more fundraising things, I would say. Yeah, I would say Key Club has been a little bit smaller in scope than in years past. Just like a lot of things, but yeah.
And if people don't know, Key Club is the high school version of Kiwanis. Is that correct? The Kiwanis Club?
Yes, yes, I would say that's correct. Yes.
So you mentioned that this is your senior year and you're going to be graduating and you're going off to Carleton College out in Minnesota. Why Carleton College? Why did you choose to leave Maine and go to Minnesota?
Well, my dad actually went to college in Minnesota, not at Carleton. So like Minnesota schools were like kind of like on like the periphery of my radar when I began my college search. And then I found like one school in Minnesota that I liked that I didn't end up going to, that was coincidentally like 40 minutes from Carleton. And my parents were like, well, if we're going to visit that one, just, visit Carleton too. And my dad and I were going to go last March, but then it was delayed by the pandemic. I was finally able to visit, and this April, I believe, and I just got on campus and I was like, oh yeah, this is pretty much it. I just felt this really strong sense of community. The student body really felt like my people. So I'm like I could really see myself like being friends with the people on campus. I feel like that's a really important aspect of it. And the academics were really strong, which is something that I really prioritized. It just kind of all worked out.
Well, that was one of the things I was wondering, again, with the pandemic, the extent to which high school seniors have been able to visit campuses, but you were able eventually to get out to Minnesota.
Yeah, really close to my like decision date. Usually people will visit like when they're juniors, but I
Yeah.
had to visit the bulk of my school when I was a senior and had to make a decision in like 4 weeks. But it turned out okay. And, yeah.
What other schools were in play?
So I had Dickinson College in Pennsylvania, and then McAllister College, which was also in Minnesota. That's the school that was only 40 minutes away. And then I had American University in Washington, D.C. That was in play for a while. Gettysburg College, also in Pennsylvania. Yeah, I would say those probably round out the top 5, I would say, of the schools.
And you have said that you intend for your major to be political science and international relations. You also said that you liked language and English and reading and writing. Why political science and international relations?
I just over the course of my high school career, well, it was basically AP Gov. Well, for people who haven't taken AP Gov, which is probably the vast majority of people who are going to watch this video, it's a class basically just all about like government. So like you learn about the 3 branches of government, and just kind of like all the rules and history that like come behind all of those things. And I took that class, and most people like hate it. They absolutely don't like AP Gov, but I had a ball in that class. I loved everything to do with it. I was like, oh my God, this is just so interesting to learn just kind of all the tiny little things that just kind of create our entire nation, all the little rules that just have such a big impact. I really loved it. And that's kind of the thing that I was like, ooh, I think I kind of want to do political science or international relations. And I kind of got into international relations because my dad is from Turkey. He came to the United States for college when he was 18. And so I feel like just kind of learning about other countries and having a connection to a country that I don't personally live in, just kind of made me want to think in a more global perspective. And that kind of led me to international relations.
Have you had the chance to visit Turkey?
Yes, I went there when I was around like 6, and then around in 6th grade. And we were gonna go this year, but the pandemic kind of ruined that. But hopefully we'll be able to go next year and the years following.
How has Turkey been doing during the pandemic? I know at one point Greece was getting hit pretty hard.
I would say fairly middle of the road in comparison to a lot of other countries in Europe that have been like, I know Italy was really bad. So I feel like Turkey kind of escaped that fate, but I probably has not been doing like flawlessly. I would say their president is pretty terrible. We are not fans. So I would say like a fairly middle of the road performance from Turkey for the pandemic. Yeah. Very good.
And do you have thoughts on what you would like to do for a career?
I feel like a really defined idea for what I want to do for my major, but when it comes to my career, I feel like I probably paint with a little bit of a broader brush.
Yeah.
I feel like it would be very fulfilling for me to maybe work for a nonprofit that kind of deals in like the smaller topics that I'm more interested in. But then I feel like I could see myself in some sort of like government work capacity or something like that. So those are the 2 kind of tracks I see for myself, but who knows what I'll get into in the 4 years in Minnesota.
Yeah, that's part of the beauty of the next 4 years, is that you will have opportunities for lots of discovery.
Yeah.
You talked about you referred to them as little topics that you were interested in. Can you give us an example of what you mean by that?
Sure. I'm really passionate about like voting rights access and that kind of thing, which also ties back to the Electoral College, but and then like women's rights, reproductive health, that kind of thing. Those 2 are very important to me, but also just stuff in like international aid, that kind of thing. Helping less advantaged communities and countries. Those are the things that I really are interested in right now.
Very good. And what are your plans for the summer?
For the summer, I'm working at a lobster food truck / restaurant. So I'll probably be doing that for a lot of my time. and spending, lots of time with my family before I have to go to college. Yeah.
When do you have to head out to Minnesota?
Carleton actually starts their like orientation process fairly late, so I won't actually be leaving until like September 2nd or something like that, quite late into the year. But
Mhm. Did you work at the same place you're going to work this summer, last summer?
I've worked at a different place every single year
Okay.
for my summers. Last year I worked in Amado's, and the year before that I worked at Splashtown. So I've kind of been jumping around, but
Okay.
I'm excited for this year.
Well, hopefully this summer will go a lot more smoothly for
Yeah.
restaurants and the tourism industry here in Maine, which is so important to our economy. So thank you for taking the time to visit with us and share with us what you
Thank
have done and what you will be doing. And I wish you success as you go through your academic career and start a career as a professional.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.